Welcome one and all to episode 39 of Teatime. I'm Petter and this is James.
How's it going?
And today we're talking about the Lost Girls spin-off of the Attack on Titan manga. Spoiler warning right off the bat, since there's a chance we may be mentioning things from throughout the Attack on Titan main series, including the ending of it potentially, so you have been warned. Also, we have a very important announcement about this podcast that we'll make by the end of this episode, so stay tuned for that. And I guess now on to the discussion. I read these books back in maybe 2018, 17.
Oh
Actually,
wow.
probably more like 17. I'm quite sure. For the first time, I read them then, and I never opened them ever since then until earlier today when I reread them. So I had fun rereading them, and I think I understood them a little better.
Hmm.
Well, obviously, I think mostly thanks to the fact that we know more about these characters now than we did
True.
back then. But anyway,
True.
what's your experience with these books?
Yeah, this is the first time I read them. I had known, I knew that they existed, and I knew that there was, anime, OAD, OVA, whatever it's called, out there. And I think I had seen clips, particularly of the Mikasa one, because it's me. And I just, I don't know, I just never got around to it. It didn't feel like it was anything substantial. And honestly, as I was reading and watching, something was like nagging at me. Like, there's a word for this. Like, what? If Live May could figure it out.
Oh.
And it's like filler. Oh my gosh, it's filler. It's a filler episode. This is this is like I'm watching a Naruto or a One Piece filler episode. Nothing really happens.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, it kind of goes in a creative direction, or it takes like a interesting spin in something,
Mm.
but the characters don't change. They don't really grow too much, so it's basically like nothing ever happened. I mean, and that's kind of the point of these. Like, they're not meant to be, you know, canonical per se. Although I could see someone arguing that they are.
Right.
But anyway, that's just kind of like the feeling I had. That
Mm.
being said, I did watch all the Naruto and One Piece filler, and some were better than others. And
Yeah.
in terms of filler, in terms of filler and what Lost Girls provides, there's some highs and there's some lows,
Mm.
but it's not. If you want more Attack on Titan, want more from these characters, you get it here.
Yes, I think for that purpose, I think they're good. If you just haven't had enough of Mikasa and Annie specifically, perhaps, or just Attack on Titan, the
Mm-hmm.
world in general, yeah. I actually we talked about No Regrets last month, and we learned then, we talked then about that series originated as a visual novel, and I learned today that this one did too.
Yeah,
And then it became a novel, and then it became a manga, and then finally an anime. So it's gone through several different shapes and forms.
yeah. I guess back in its heyday, I guess Kodansha or whoever the team behind, the production of Attack on Titan was doing all sorts of side gigs and whatnot to milk the cash cow, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think it must have been like around the time when the anime came out, like the first season, and that's when the popularity just grew intensely.
Mm,
And I think that was around the time when the visual novel for this came out, like shortly after that first season of the anime,
mm,
which makes sense. And I think you can kind of tell, but we'll get to some of those things later. But
sure.
let's start by talking about Annie's part of this spin-off.
Detective Lionheart, you mean?
Yes. Honestly, I really did enjoy watching her kind of detective work and kind of finding out like
Hmm.
about this missing person slash murder mystery thing and solve all of that. I enjoyed following along with that, even though, as you say, it is definitely feels very much like filler, and it is filler. I still thought it was an interesting ride.
Yeah, I think at times it kind of slogged, and granted, it did feel like a mystery, a detective case, that one of those kind of genres, especially when
Mm.
she's kind of monologuing to herself, and then all of a sudden she's like, oh, "Wait, police records. Let's check those." It's like, uh,
Yeah.
it's very detective work, even though the correlation between, you know, pontificating, then all of a sudden be like police records, or oh, this must be it.
Mm, mm.
But that's kind of goes along with the genre anyway.
Fair, yeah.
But no, I mean, I enjoyed it more so than I thought I would. I do think it's strange. Well, when I first finished reading it, I thought it was kind of odd that Annie would be occupying herself in this way, especially since it just didn't feel like Annie would care at all about doing this.
Hmm.
Like almost like it was out of character for her. But when I watched the anime, she mentions, and maybe she even mentioned in the manga, that this is a good way to keep her mind off of things, like keep her from having anxiety about what she had to go do the next day.
Right.
I was like,
I'm
well,
quite sure that
that's
was in the
fair.
manga as well. And yeah, that is. I
Yeah,
think that's fair. And I thought they made it work with that reasoning. And
yeah.
I appreciated seeing, kind of having that show just how burdened she was for,
Mm-hmm.
for knowing what she was gonna have to do the next day.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that actually. And also kind of seeing how she was kind of hesitantly realizing that she was more similar to Aaron and the others than she kind of wanted to admit. I kind of enjoyed that as
mm,
well.
that's true.
And just in general, this was a really good read this time around for me. My previous time around, I mean, yeah, I still wouldn't call it like an incredible read, but I did enjoy it more now than I did my first time around. And I think that is because of what I mentioned before, how the main series is over now. We know a lot more about Annie, like specifically for this.
mm,
So I don't know. It's easier to relate to her now, I think, than it was for me back before I knew her whole backstory.
yeah,
Um,
that's true.
and to be fair, like this was, or at least the visual novel, which came out first. I'm sorry if there's sounds in the background. By the way, my cat is running around a little bit. Hopefully, it's not too bothersome. But yeah, just letting you guys know because I'm hearing her a bit here. But anyway, sorry, where was I? Oh yeah, we know Annie better now than we did. And the visual novel, I'm sure, must have come out before the Marley arc, and quite a bit before the Marley arc, since that was back in
Mm-hmm.
2013. And yeah, the Marley arc didn't come around, I think,
Yeah,
until
no
like
way.
2017 or so.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so the fact that I guess Annie was written this in this kind of positive light, I thought was interesting, especially for the time when it was made. But in hindsight,
Mm-hmm.
right now it makes sense because we know that she isn't this villain, really, exactly the way she was
Right.
portrayed in the female Titan arc, kind of. And it was
Yeah.
also interesting how they even showed Annie's father and the time when Annie rebelled against him. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm quite sure must have originated from Lost Girls because that specific part of her backstory wasn't brought up in the main story until, was it like the final arc or something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
So that makes me wonder if either Isayama told the writer of Lost Girls about a future plan that he had, or if he just took that idea from whoever wrote Lost Girls and used it later on in his own story. I could see either. I really don't know which, but it's interesting still. Like kind of regardless, I think it's interesting how that kind of carried over into the main series much later in time.
Mm-hmm. I think we had hints about her father and that relationship before the Lost Girls was written. Like I'm pretty sure there Annie has a moment where she thinks back to her moment with her father. So there's definitely something along those lines.
Yeah,
So I really wouldn't be surprised if Isayama had already planned more or less what he wanted to do with her relationship with her
true.
father.
Maybe. Yeah, because when she's encasing herself in the crystal at the end of the female Titan arc, she
Yeah.
does have that whole kind of. She's thinking back to that, and there's this pretty long monologue by her father about him wanting her to promise him to return to her, and like that's
Yeah.
basically her entire drive force by the end of the manga.
Yeah.
So that is established, but the whole rebelling part was not there until much later in the main series.
You're right. I just because he had thought that part out, maybe he had already thought about uh the rebelling and the
True.
training and what he did to his leg because even in the main story he does have a messed up leg still. So I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of let them know what was going on in his mind about at
Mm.
least Annie.
Right. Yeah.
Um
Definitely could be.
but then again, maybe, yeah, maybe he did take that idea. He's like, ooh, I like that.
Right.
I'll
I mean,
use that.
that's the thing. Yeah, I could see both ways. Yeah.
Yeah. But I agree with you that knowing what we do now and having the frame of reference of Annie outside the crystal and kind of what her emotional struggles were,
Mm.
um, it does shine a better light on this story. And I think that we go back to our read through of Annie during the female Titan arc, how she was after she had gotten her butt kicked by Levi and they escaped, and um, she was just crying in the woods.
Yeah.
We couldn't. I mean, I think we took some guesses why it was, but it wasn't exactly clear why she would be emotionally upset, distraught. But
Mm.
I think that with this story, you kind of get that understanding a little bit more. That there's just a lot going on in her mind, and she has conflicting feelings about this whole thing. And on top of that, she's just really probably stressed out about the whole situation and what's going on. She's actually a human being. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
uh, so yeah, it was nice. It is nice to have that context. But if you go into the story without that, unless you're very open minded, which not a whole lot of people were with Annie at the beginning, or maybe they were, I don't know. But then yeah, it you may not get that same feeling. But I definitely feel because we had that kind of final character growth and understanding for Annie in the end, that it does make the story a little better, or at least
Mm.
make a little more sense.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because she never gets a lot of focus in the main series, even though she has an entire arc named after her. Uh, she's never really in the focus completely. So I thought it was nice to have a whole volume centered around her here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like focus is, yeah, she's not quite the focus, but I mean, she's definitely, you know, Annie has her moments in the first, or not the first arc, but the some of the training arc
Mm,
and other things where Aaron is learning from her
true.
and things like that. But it's never, let's see Annie's point of view.
Precisely.
Well, we do get a bit of that in Reiner's flashback, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
but
not to
not
get
not that
into the
much though.
weeds. Right, right.
Mm-mm. But yeah, something I also appreciated was that we got to see a partial Titan transformation in this one, since that isn't really something we saw a lot, at least not after the female Titan arc in the main manga. I don't know if we
Mm-hmm.
saw a lot of like partial transformations. Um, so I don't know. I just thought it was nice to see more of that because I've always thought those are kind of interesting in a way.
So forgive me for being really nitpicky.
Huh?
Like I don't know why I just was so nitpicky with this story, and I'm trying like to hold back as much as I can because I do see, you know, I've already mentioned some of the good of this, and like there is a lot good to be taken.
Uh-huh.
However, transforming into a titan in the middle of the city, what are you doing? Even if it is a partial transformation, you're just gonna blow your cover like that? What?
Yeah.
No.
Well,
Like the circumstances weren't even at the right time to do that. Like yes, like it was somewhat dire, but like she could get out of that. Like come on.
how could she have gotten out of that?
They didn't tie her legs. She's a kicking fiend.
True. Okay, that's a good point. That's actually a good point.
Like it's I to me it didn't make sense why she had to go, other than it was an exciting moment. Yeah, sure, it was exciting. But for someone who's supposed to be undercover,
Mhm.
that seems like a kind of dumb thing to do in my mind.
Yeah,
And I just didn't, it doesn't seem like something that Annie would have done.
maybe.
But I'm not Isayama or, you know, writing this story. It's just something I thought was a little silly.
Fair. I hadn't thought about that at all in that way. I just thought it was a cool moment. Kind of.
It was a cool moment. It was.
But I do
I will
see your
not take
point
that away
though.
from it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll agree. Yeah, it's not. That I guess it doesn't make it. Thinking about it some more, could have been handled better. But I can't complain too much, I guess. But please do continue nitpicking because I do think it's fun. Oh, and Annie eating a donut for the first time reminded me of the Servitor eating ice cream in Marley for the first time. It
Same.
was I
Same.
loved that. Like it was totally that the same energy, the same vibes. It was super cute.
Here comes another nitpick.
Oh.
Why wouldn't she know what donuts are? Like,
I mean, I assume they don't exist in Marley.
how do they? Okay, this one I can understand a little bit more than the Titan transformation. Maybe in the internment camp, or in Liberio. Is that what they're living at?
Yeah.
Maybe they just never sold donuts around there.
Right, could be that too. Or they just never made it in Marley. Like maybe it like in this world, maybe it's a Paradisian invention or
But these guys are Eldian. Like,
yeah, but they may have
they're the same people only 100 years ago.
Some chef may have made it up in the past 50 years on parody or something like that.
So are you telling me that donuts do not exist in the outside world? That I do not believe that.
Well, I mean, ice cream doesn't exist on parody. Like,
why would it exist on parody? Ice cream is I don't know, like
they have cows on parody.
Yes, you're right. They do have cows. But how would they have the technology to be able to do that? To make ice cream?
I don't know.
But donuts make sense. You can fry oil up, fry dough in oil.
But maybe no one just ever thought of doing that on the main continent.
In the main world? Oh, come on. Come on. You see, this is super nitpicky of me. I get it. But it's just something anyway.
I mean, although, as you said, it could also be that they just weren't around a lot in Liberia. It could be that too.
Maybe
and that would make sense as well.
That's what it was. Yeah. Because if we remember, when they had the festival during the Marley arc, it felt like there was a lot of foods that the kids and even the warriors hadn't really eaten before.
True.
So
true, actually. Yeah.
Maybe there would have been donuts there and they would have had a chance. But...
Yeah. I think I like that explanation for it. That makes sense.
No, Again, sorry about that, but
no.
It just kind of, I was like, really? I don't know about that. But it was very cute, and I like it better in the manga than in the anime.
Yeah.
In the anime, it's just kind of brushed off,
Precisely.
but the manga is really silly. Like, she takes a bite, she's like, give me more.
Right. Yeah. Honestly, the anime of this was the pacing was interesting to me because some parts of it they really lingered and kind of dwelled on certain scenes and kind of built them out to be longer, whereas other parts they, as you said, just kind of brushed off. So it was very inconsistent, kind of compared to the manga, at least in that regard. Obviously, I don't know what it's like compared to the original source, like the visual novel, but at least comparing the manga to the anime, the pacing was very different, and I did prefer it in the manga overall.
Yeah, I think same.
At least, talking just about Annie's part here.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, about Annie's story, like, I could consider it to be kind of canon. Like, I don't know, I don't think it technically is, but, like, this is not a story, like, or rather, this is a story that I would be fine with this being canon. Even though, as we said, like, it doesn't necessarily, like, develop her character, but at least it gives us a little bit of insight to her, kind of what's going on in her thoughts and stuff like that. And for that reason, I think I think that this one is worthy of being canon, in my opinion.
It's not just thoughts. I mean, we do get some interesting insight into her relationship with the father, like we mentioned, but
true.
It's also just life within this Stohis district. As the part of the military brigade. What was it called again? I'm losing terms.
Military police brigade.
Yeah, police. Yeah, military police. Just kind of her life in that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, maybe this isn't exactly how it would go down, but Hitch somehow gets Annie to do some of her tasks. Like, this is not the first time. Yeah, like it was an interesting kind of piece of her existence there.
Yeah.
So I did enjoy that.
Nice.
Art wise, did you? I think Annie looked pretty good. Like, maybe not exactly how Isayama did it, but for the most part, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
When Hitch was first shown, I was like, "Who's that? Like, who's that supposed to be? Who is this gremlin?" And like, or I mean, gremlin makes it sound like it's an ugly person. It's like, no, it's just they made her eyes really big, and I don't know, maybe that's just the makeup doing its work, but when the note said hit from Hitch, I was like, what? Like that's Hitch? I figured, but it's just still it does not look like Hitch.
Yeah, it's somehow off. Yeah, yeah. I can agree with that. But overall, I do think the art is good here. Obviously, it doesn't look.
The art is very good.
You can tell it's not Isayama, but obviously it's not Isayama, and obviously that's
No,
the
it's
reason.
not,
So
yeah.
no one's gonna draw exactly like Isayama draws. But I do think
Right.
this is a good attempt at drawing the characters that he designed. For the most
Yeah.
part.
For the most part, I mean, I think Hitch aside, I mean, Aaron does look a little weird, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But Hitch aside, I think most of the characters are really good, and the art is pretty well done too. I mean, I wouldn't even call it simple. I think it's just pretty standard art wise.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's good.
I think the action scenes were handled really well too.
Yes, I agree. They were handled very well, and very nice paneling.
Yeah.
His ugly characters, I think he really excels at drawing ugly characters.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think that's it for the art on there. The other thing that I had a nitpick with, I mean, it made it exciting again, but her getting shot and just walking around with a huge hole in her chest, like I do not care about people being like, hey, someone just walked around with a hole in their chest. Isn't that suspicious? Nah, it happens all the time. It's like, what? You're supposed to be undercover. Be inconspicuous.
She was short for time though. Like she.
True. Yeah. So yes.
She didn't have time to go change.
But at least heal your wound.
But didn't she do that though? Didn't she do that? I thought
eventually. But like when she went into the bar to confront Lou or whatever, she still had the hole in her chest.
Oh, I thought it was just hole in the fabric.
Well, so it's hard to tell with black and white exactly.
Fair.
But it looks like the hole. It doesn't look like it's showing skin. It looks like it's showing the wall behind her. In when the pose when she says so perfect you could frame it and hang it.
I'm looking at it now. I could also buy that as being her skin though. But
you think so?
At least that's how I'm choosing to view it.
I mean, again, black and white. It's hard to tell exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I see what you mean as well though, but I feel like it makes a lot more sense for that to be skin.
Yeah, fair enough. It definitely would make a lot more sense if it was skin.
Yeah.
It'd be very silly of her to walk around with the hole.
Yeah, it would.
So yeah, that was another silly nitpick of mine.
All good. All good. Keep them coming.
How many slums do they have in the walls? Like, come on. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's pretty big. Like the areas within the walls,
true.
To be fair, are quite large.
I mean, that's fair, but it's also like you have this grand underground. I mean, grand is maybe not the right word, but this very, very big underground where that's supposed to be, the worst place to live. Then you have these guys who are hopped up on drugs. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what's the difference?
It's a miserable place to be, in general.
Apparently, I mean, yeah. And
then you got like the outskirts of the walls, like where mostly poorer people live as well. So
true. Yeah.
You're
right.
It's shit.
Yeah. So going back to the donuts real quick, she mentioned that she being Carly, she said, "Hey," or I tried to get the recipe for the donuts, but they wouldn't let me because they're the only ones who make them. And then she went about how she's the only one who can make the drug. Oh yeah. It just got me thinking, like, wait, is the donut supposed to be a comparison to the drugs? like the donut people won't give the recipe. She won't give the recipe for the drugs.
Oh.
So it lives and dies with her.
That's funny. I didn't pick up on that, but I like that way of thinking about it. Or it's interesting, I guess.
It's so strange. So minuscule.
Very strange, but it's funny though.
And lastly, I'll this is about both manga actually. The writing is just katakana upside down. So if you flip the book,
really,
you could just read the katakana.
Oh yeah, because I didn't pick up on that. Obviously, since I don't read or know Japanese, but I did pick up on that the writing looked different. Like definitely distinctly different from how Izuyama does the writing in the main manga.
Right. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
These characters look familiar.
That's so funny. Oh,
I
wow.
mean, why? I guess Isayama didn't pass on his writing style. I don't know, man.
Right.
Either way, I thought it was pretty hilarious because it's not like the average Japanese person is not gonna be able to figure that out.
Yeah, right.
You know, they're gonna be like, wait a minute.
Yeah, and don't you know it? A little later in the main manga, Isayama would do the same thing, but with a world map, more or
You're
less.
right. So it's faithful to the adaptation, or
Yeah.
faithful to the canon series. There you go.
Uh-huh.
That's all I'll say. I can go really, really into the weeds, but let's not do that.
All right then. So let's talk about Mikasa's part next. Well, you can really tell, I think, that the spin-off was inspired by the anime specifically. At least when Mikasa's mom, you see her passing down the freaking embroiderment instead of the wrist tattoo.
Yeah, yeah. When I first read it, I thought you were to blame. It's because of you.
Oh.
But then I was looking at dates and everything, and it's like, you know what? They must have just taken it straight from the anime.
Yeah, I'm
Which
quite
is just
sure.
still so dumb.
Yeah, it is dumb. I agree. Since the visual novel came out, at least from what I recall, shortly after the anime, or like at some point after the anime season 1. So, yeah, that is very silly. They just kept that up from the anime for whatever reason.
I think that Isayama just through the whole time just kept it out of spite. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna bring this up later on, and you're gonna have to retcon it somehow. And then that's the reason why Wit said no. They're like, we're not doing it. Like, we can't fix that.
Which is
We'll let someone else do
out.
it. It's all because of tattoo.
Like, there's no way out of this now. Mappa, please solve this for us. Oh man. Mm-hmm. But anyway, about Mikasa's part here, her story. Pretty much right off the bat, we understand that her story is like an alternate reality or a wishful thinking sort of story.
A what if?
A what if, you could
if
say. Yeah, but also kind of something that she kind of seems to have wished for, at least to some degree. And obviously her story
True.
in the past kind of deals about kind of what wishful thinking, kind of how that can affect you, kind of, or how that can affect your life. Kind of, I guess, be careful about what you wish for and things like that. But because of because of her story being the way it is, I have a harder time viewing Mikasa's part of the story as canon. Even though I do find it interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, like comparing this to Annie's, I think this one's harder to view as canon. I guess you could view it as canon within Mikasa's mind, like viewing it that way, like it being a thought of hers during the struggle in Trost. Then I guess you could view it as canon, as long as it's not actually reality. It's just what she's thinking about in the moment. I guess that could work, but yeah.
Yeah, oddly enough, the anime for their chapter placement, or because usually they have like a number 16 or something like that. They just did question marks, basically implying that there's no exact time frame for where this could be happening, or it just deals with a alternate timeline or something like that. Even though they do specifically take it from Mikasa's time in the Trost arc, like she supposedly has this during the Trost arc.
Yeah, that was so. I thought the anime made it really kind of messy, this part, because they started it not during the Trost arc, but later when they were at the wall killing Titans with a log.
Yeah.
For some reason, they chose that as kind of the frame for that episode, because that's when it started and when it ended.
Yeah.
I just thought that made the whole thing unnecessarily messy. Like, it was just a redundant kind of thing to do with the plot. And at the same time, I kind of also felt, because the way they went about it in the anime, that they went back to Mikasa's childhood and showed what actually happened. Then they kind of went forward in time to the Trost arc, and then they went back again to show the what if scenario. And I don't know, to me, not only did it kind of just make things unnecessarily messy. It also, in my opinion, kind of, it was like they were kind of dumbing down the viewers, kind of as if though we wouldn't understand that this is not what actually happened. I don't know. I didn't like it at all, the way they handled that in the anime.
Yeah, I agree actually. I think that it was a strange decision on their end, almost like they felt like they didn't have enough source material, so they had to buffer it out a bit.
Right, it's strange because they definitely had like the Mikasa part was far more fast paced in the anime than Annie's.
Hmm.
Like they skipped out,
Yeah,
they skipped a lot more things because they obviously just covered it in a single episode.
yeah, yeah. No, it's true. As to why they would have started it at the wall killing titans, with that hammer thing. I guess just because they wanted to put it in the within the time frame of, well, whenever this episode released, because I think it
Right.
released during the middle of season 3, right?
I
Uh,
assume so. Yeah.
so I just guess that they wanted to have that time frame for whatever reason, even though they didn't need it. Especially, I mean, in Annie's case, like obviously this is happening before the female Titan arc. You know what I
Uh
mean?
huh.
So I don't know. It seems strange
Hmm.
that they felt they felt like they had to do that. I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
But what I love about the manga, or at least in how they went about doing it,
Hmm.
you have the fake out at the beginning where instead of it being the the terrible scene we all know with the slave traders coming in,
Yeah. Yeah.
it actually is Dr. Jaeger,
Yeah. I love that.
Um, it's kind of a great, like, okay, so this is where we're going with this kind of
Right.
moment. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Actually, I was really stupid the first time I read this back in 2017, if I recall. I I totally misunderstood this whole what if scenario. I actually was dumb enough that I would have needed the extra explanation from the anime. Actually, for some reason, I don't feel like I should have been, or well, I evidently I was, because the way I misinterpreted it was that somehow I missed a lot of details, important details that shouldn't be easy to miss, but for some reason I did.
Hmm.
I don't know if I read it too fast or whatever. But I basically my misunderstanding was that it was the real timeline somehow, and that Mikasa and Eren had, and like it all took place before the actual happening where Mikasa's parents were killed, and that this was
Hmm.
something that happened maybe a year or so before then, and that Mikasa and Eren were actually friends for a year or so before the time when he and when Eren and his dad was gonna go to to that checkup that we know from the main series when Mikasa's parents were killed.
Interesting.
And I think for anyone who has listened to the early episodes of Titan Tea Time, I think I actually mentioned in one of the really early episodes, I
Oh,
mentioned
really?
something about. I think I very confidently probably said something along the lines of, yeah, no, actually, Mikasa and Eren knew each other before she moved in with them. I think I said something about that back, to you and Steven, in like a
uh,
really like episode 1 or 2 or something like that
uh.
of our podcast. Obviously, way wrong. It's kind of embarrassing, but I just wanted to kind of, I guess, make it clear to anyone listening now, on the big off chance that anyone remembers that, which I don't actually think anyone does, but if anyone does, let it be known that I am a wiser man now. It's basically that. Yeah.
Well, I guess speaking about in Eren and Mikasa knowing each other, it's nice kind of seeing Eren warm up to, well, both of them warm up to each other, um, you know, as children versus just kind of being thrown into the fire, with
True.
what happens in the actual story.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so Eren is a little off-puttish towards her, and she's kind of shy, but eventually, they kind of grow closer,
Hmm.
and as the visits come and the days go by, yeah, they really start becoming friends and really close, and I just like the relationship that builds there.
Yeah.
uh just kind of a little more wholesome in a way.
It is. Yeah. It's really wholesome. It was very sweet. something you kind of wished for, or well, not completely since it ends tragically, but yeah, the fact that Mikasa's parents didn't die there,
Right.
very sweet. Back when the second to last chapter of the main series had just gotten or come out, I remember seeing a lot of people talk about this spin-off, well, the Mikasa part of it specifically,
Mm-hmm.
since that chapter we saw like kind of an alternate reality slash wishful thinking kind of thing between Mikasa and Eren, obviously, and
Mm.
people speculated about whether there was a connection to this what if scenario from Lost Girls. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember some theories or some people were speculating about whether or not maybe the Ackermans had an ability, some kind of Path C
Oh my.
ability to kind of peek into alternate realities. I think or something
Hmm.
like that was something I remember seeing people speculating about. It was really interesting thoughts. Obviously, or well, I guess it's still up to interpretation to some extent, but with the
Mm-hmm.
final chapter of the main manga having come out, I don't think that's quite the case anymore. Or well, I don't think I necessarily thought it, but
Right.
I don't think that is the case since I'm pretty sure that was more like a, I guess, an alternate reality that Eren gave Mikasa as well as his other friends through paths from his end. So not anything tied
Mm-hmm.
to Mikasa being an Ackerman, but still, I thought those were some really interesting thoughts, and I think thanks to though all of those speculations, I think a lot of people went and read this manga
Yeah.
because it kind of came into kind of it came into a lot of discussions back then.
There was a passage from the novel version that I remember people passing along that
Ah,
seemed to really speak to people, but I can't, for the life of me, I couldn't find it.
I don't remember that.
So because it for some reason it differentiated from the manga for some reason, like it was
Oh,
some sort a couple lines about Mikasa and Eren and
mm,
potentially the future. Um,
I see.
so yeah, it was. I remember being rather intrigued by it, but
Mm.
I still wasn't like fully on board with it per se. I think I was still waiting for the final chapter
Oh
to
yeah.
get out to fully understand it.
At
And
that point, yeah, we couldn't think of anything but the final chapter.
you're right, you're right. I mean, oh gosh, sleepless nights. Whew,
Yeah,
that was rough.
literally, yeah.
Yeah, no, literally. Um, but what I kind of take away from this is, I mean, if we're trying to make sense of it within the main canon,
Mm,
you could argue that it could be a vision of sorts from Eren, although it does seem that Mikasa has control of it more. So I don't think it fits that exactly, you
mm,
know?
right.
It's more like Mikasa's dreaming and she's able to influence it in that way, but it still doesn't, it's still not exactly a dream. It does feel kind of alternate dimension like, something sketchy's going on kind of a thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and also the way it's mirroring kind of the situation that's actually happening in the
Yes.
real world in various ways. Yeah, yeah.
And so my thought went towards uh Emir maybe sending this kind of message because within the manga,
Mm.
uh, we we see Mikasa's getting these strong headaches. Now I'm not sure exactly if Isayama was guiding him in that aspect, or I don't know. Maybe he just the artist slash story writer decided, oh yeah, she has headaches. I'll use that here. Um, but as far as we understand, the headaches were something that Emir was using to help Mikasa or make her protect Eren or whatever.
Mm.
And so I just thought, well, maybe this is kind of a vision from Emir in order to motivate Mikasa to keep trying to save Eren or
Yeah.
keep helping him or something. I don't know.
I like that. I hadn't considered that, but I think that makes a lot of sense, especially since we know that, yeah, she was reaching out to Mikasa throughout the series, and
Mm-hmm.
for this to be an example of that, like kind of a concrete visualization, or yeah, more example of that, I think that's pretty interesting. And honestly, with that in mind, I'm more keen on considering this to be canon. Obviously, it's not my place to say or kind
No.
of,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. No,
but
I get
but yeah,
it.
no, I actually I kind of I really like that though. Thanks for bringing that up.
yeah, I mean, if we hadn't had the context of the last chapter, I'd be like, I don't know, like it doesn't really make any sense. But with what we know,
Hmm.
yeah, I think I could see it being canon. Although I'd probably put Annie's story on more likely to have happened than
True.
than this Mikasa one. But
Right.
again, who am I to say?
Mm-mm. Yeah, and yeah. Something that I found really interesting actually was when Grisha was talking to Mikasa on the boat.
Yes.
He says, what happened then might have been something Eren brought upon himself. Something inside of him could have drawn him to it, as if it was his destiny. Something wicked and dangerous.
Hmm.
That's really interesting because
Right.
that could be him talking about the future Eren, obviously, who's influencing the younger Eren through paths.
Yes.
And then they went on to discuss like this greater power that none of us can see. Obviously, seems very pathsy, um,
Hmm.
and that Eren is upset because that is what's kind of encaging him, which is true. He was a slave to his own destiny, or the destiny that his future self kind of gave to him in a way, and that Mikasa might, or he says that Mikasa might be the only one who can protect Eren from that, which
Hmm.
also kind of in a way turns out to be true in the end. So that entire scene and everything that Grisha is saying in that moment is so interesting, considering the ending of the whole manga, and everything that kind of comes up way later, kind of compared to when this all was written. So yeah, it just makes me wonder how much did Isayama tell the writer of this. Man, yeah, it was
It's
really,
spooky, man.
yeah, absolutely spooky.
Like you're reading it and understanding that this is not after the Attack on Titan has been finished. This is even before the Marley arc. It's like
Yeah.
what? How
Yeah.
how are they? Because I mean, yeah, we understood that Eren was, you know, very, I guess, a hard person to control or pin down. Even before his, I guess, lack of a better word, edgy phase.
Mhm.
Um, but to go as far as to say like being controlled by a greater power, uh, and just the things that it seems Grisha's alluding to.
Mm.
I mean, you would. It's not like to the point where you feel like he knows something entirely. It still is kind of vague, but what he's saying and what we know now is like it matches so well.
Yeah, yeah, it is really interesting.
Although I will say, when Mikasa and Eren are in the woods, and Mikasa said, "What's gonna kill me?" and Eren's just like, "A greater power." Like, oh come on, like that's so cheesy. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not cheesy. I don't know.
No,
Like,
but you're right.
I, it just, I guess there's a difference between cheesy and corny, right? So maybe it's,
mm, mm.
or maybe it's the same thing. I don't know. Either
I
way,
don't even really know. Yeah.
it's like he thought of something that sound cool.
Mm.
A greater power. What?
Yeah.
But it did lead to that discussion with Grisha and Mikasa, which kind of, yeah, like I said,
Yeah.
was pretty cool.
That
So
was, yeah, made it worth it, I think.
yeah,
That's really cool. And Aaron and Armin were working on a flying boat. Except they don't call it a flying boat, they call it an airplane here. In the manga, at
I don't
least.
think it makes sense.
No, it doesn't.
That's another nitpick.
Yeah, which I agree with. I'm happy they changed it to an air balloon in the anime.
Yeah,
I'm so happy
that's
they
like the one
did.
time in these two things where I feel like the anime actually made a really good change.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, definitely.
like a conscious change.
Yeah, because yeah, right, because the obviously the flying boat, aka the airplane that's later in the main manga, is obviously like a brand new thing. Like so nothing like that should have
Right.
existed prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. Plus, it also makes sense because, at least according to, well, I think in the Uprising arc, there we see some examples of various things that the interior military police kind of stopped, like various technological advancements.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
one of those things is we see like, there's a couple that escape or try to escape the walls on a hot air balloon. In the Attack on Titan character encyclopedia, it's explained that those that couple was Armin's parents,
Mm.
because that's not exactly clear in the main story.
Mm-hmm. I think I heard that from you.
Yeah, I think I think I said that to you at some point. And so I think, yeah, it makes more sense since, yeah, it's explained that Armin's parents tried to use the airplane to escape but failed. But switching that to the hot air balloon, it kind of makes it work more better along with the main manga that way. So yeah, definitely a good change on the anime's part.
Yeah. I guess they also prevented the technology of ice cream from developing too. Nope, nope, too good, too good. You can't. You must punish for your sins. No ice cream.
Damn you, interior military police.
Can't have anything.
Yeah.
But no, with this story, I kind of like the parallels that we see between what actually happened versus this alternate reality. It's like she couldn't really escape it.
Right. Precisely.
And how like her development was just all happening, from the seeing the Soviet Corps members return unsuccessfully and getting the scarf to having a similar type awakening moment.
Yeah, and having Eren die. I mean, in the moment he wasn't actually dead, but he was believed to be dead. So yeah.
Yeah, and then the whole Armin moment too. Like this was
yeah.
Parallel, and it was just an interesting way to tell the story, especially when Mikasa seemed to have control of, she could wish for something to happen in a way, and it would, but it still ended up happening. Like she couldn't escape it.
Right.
I like that.
I really like that too. I definitely enjoyed Mikasa's part. Like, I enjoyed both of these more on reading, like rereading them now years later. But I think especially Mikasa's part, I enjoyed even more. Even though I think they're solid reads, both of them.
Yeah. What's up with the Mirror Man? Like, what? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. To me, at least partially, he seemed to be something that just kind of from a nightmare and kind of just making the scenario feel even more like a nightmare, which it was very much turning into at the moment. When Mikasa was just stuck in the crowd, getting trampled on, and everyone was just kind of aggressive, and she was kind of in a hurry, and Eren was, about to die. Well, we didn't know that, but he ultimately did. And I felt like Mirror Man was kind of represented this kind of fairy tale turning into a nightmare in a way. That's, I guess, my best way to interpret him. Although there's probably more to him, or maybe I don't know, or maybe not.
I don't know.
Do you have any thoughts?
My big thought is, in order to not make him feel out of place and just put there just to be an obstacle, it would have been interesting if Mikasa was noticing this Mirror Man throughout, maybe in tiny glimpses, and it was just something that was in the back of her mind, and maybe she interacts with him at one point when she visits Eren's home, but it's brief, and then he comes back. I'm not asking for like a reveal who he is. I think that's part of what makes the character interesting, is that we don't exactly understand who or what the Mirror Man is. It's probably just as this all is. It's just a figment of someone's imagination, creation, or whatever. But I think it would have made his appearance not seem so, random and out of place.
Fair. Yeah, that could have been really cool. At the same time, I kind of also, like, from my point of view, I kind of appreciate him just appearing kind of out of nowhere, just suddenly at the time when this kind of wishful, happy story was becoming so nightmarish.
I can see that too. I think that's really all I have on that story.
Right.
I don't know which I liked better, Annie's or Mikasa's. I mean, obviously, I'm a huge Mikasa fanboy, and will always be. But on one side, you get an somewhat interesting look into Annie's life and something that we didn't really get too much in the main series. But in the other one, you just kind of get this fascinating alternate dimension that has a lot more weight now that the story's all over for whatever reason. Somehow.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Somehow.
That's so fascinating. Yeah, no, they are obviously very different, and I think that's kind of the charm of this spin-off. Like it gives two very different stories that are good in their own right. And I think I also have a hard time choosing a favorite out of them, like overall.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess that's all on the manga itself.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I do have a couple more thoughts about the anime.
Hmm.
I think in terms of which I like better, definitely Annie's was better handled. I think it was animated better too.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Like the Mikasa one, it just felt like there wasn't as much heart in it, and maybe the direction wasn't as good. I could be wrong. It felt like the Annie one had a little more polish to it. Um, but even putting that aside, I just think that 2 episodes for Lost Girls or for Annie's section was substantial enough to tell most of the story. I mean, yes, they cut some things out still, but it felt like it was more complete.
For sure.
In that way. I like how they added the Reiner letter edition. Well, actually,
Yeah.
what do you think? Because on the one hand, again, she's supposed to be undercover. And you don't want to blow your cover, but you do got to communicate somehow. And they did talk in, just a code that no one would supposedly suspect.
Right.
So I think it worked out.
I think so too. I liked it. It was good to hear Reiner's voice. Read that letter. I appreciate that.
That was the only reason. In the Mikasa section, I like how Eren invites her to come with them to the hot air balloon.
Oh,
versus
yeah.
in the manga, he's like, "I'll be back for you." Like I think both have their perks, but the anime one kind of gives Mikasa something to do and does just make her sit in the background.
Yeah.
So I like that.
Yeah, and it also shows, I think, how Eren kind of cares a bit more about her in the way that he wants to involve her immediately and not save it for later, kind of.
Right, I agree. I agree. But to the manga's credit, I do think there is something sweet about coming back for someone in a way. I think there's something positive about that as well.
That's fair, actually. Yeah.
But the end, I think anime is better in that regard.
Yeah. They everything kind of surrounding the hot air balloon, I guess, was just better.
Yeah. And then no Carla in the anime is a sin.
Indeed. Yes.
I like. What were they thinking? We created the single greatest mom in anime ever, and we dropped the ball on this, guys. What is wrong?
Yeah, how dare?
How dare you? Like she's in the manga perfectly fine and great, and so great with Mikasa. Like, why? What were you thinking?
Yeah.
And yeah, sure, Grisha's role was also dropped, but well, I mean, he was there, but it wasn't as prevalent as in the manga.
Yeah.
But they gotta get their priorities straight.
They do.
They really come on.
Yeah, Mikasa didn't get any cake from Carla.
Like, what the heck? I'm just baffled, like really baffled.
Seriously.
That's all I got.
All right then. Yeah, I didn't take a lot of notes for the anime, or I kind of sprinkle all of my stuff throughout the manga discussion. So I think that's all for all of the discussions about Lost Girls in general, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. And now for the podcast-related announcement that we mentioned at the beginning of the episode. So basically, well, there's no easy way to say this, but next month we're releasing the final episode of Titan Teatime. The plan is basically to round off this podcast after having released new episodes of it every single month for 40 months straight is what it's going to be. Something I'm super proud of, having it done this so consistently for that long. It'll be, over 3 years, and every single month, not a single month skipped. And yeah. I'm not going to dwell on that right now, but so yeah, Titan Teatime is coming to a close next month. However, our general manga podcast called Umami Manga will of course continue. So things aren't really going to change that much. We're still going to talk about manga, just not that much about Attack on Titan, because I don't know. probably at this point kind of just said pretty much all that we've had to say about Attack on Titan.
Right.
So there's not really much of a need for Titan Tea Time anymore, and that's all it is. But yeah, Umami Manga, check that out if you haven't already. We talk about all sorts of other manga on there.
For sure. I'm saving all my thoughts for the last episode. So
Right, smart, yeah, because yeah, the next episode is gonna be just kind of a casual discussion for the most part. We're gonna maybe reminisce a little bit, but also, uh, we'll maybe talk about some of our favorite things from throughout the series and maybe from throughout our podcast itself, perhaps. I guess we'll see. We haven't really planned it out too much, but it's gonna be a final episode anyway. So yeah, I guess that's it for this month, though.
yeah.
Sweet. So if you enjoy our content, you can follow us on Twitter at Umami Manga, and it would be lovely if you'd like to support us by rating our show on the podcast platforms and subscribing to our channel, Umami Manga, on YouTube. If you like this episode, please share it with anyone you think might enjoy it too. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time for the final episode of Titan Tea Time. Bye bye!
See you later. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-da.
Do 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 do.